Hello and welcome to FGC Philosophy. My name is Tavian the Philosopher Napier. I work for, in the esports industry in terms of production, coaching, a lot of different things, a lot of different hats I'm wearing right now for different colleges, Western Michigan University and Albion. But I also do some high school stuff on the side, just trying to get better at that, but also just trying to be a better human being, trying to get more healthy. And that's why I do this podcast. I want to try to talk about things that I think are important, things that are going to help me be a better person and hopefully help other people be better people. And that's why I do this. So I have some fun stuff to talk about today. It is from this weekend. I just got home. I did a little bit of playing Rocket League just because I had Rocket League on the brain. And then I also just wrote some notes, got my thoughts out, and did some research on some other stuff as well. Some topics to talk about, kind of help get some inspiration, so to speak. So yeah, I'll be talking about this weekend. Me and the WMU team, the varsity and the club esports teams, a lot of our teams came out to South Bend, which is about 2 hours, and did an overnight tournament there. For a lot of these players, it was their first experience. They competed in multiple different games, and I'll get into that later on. It's just breaking down that day, maybe talking about the things that I've learned and goals for the future, just the emotions that were happening during that day, and just kind of be grateful for the experience because it was really fun for me to go as well. I didn't compete in anything, but I was from the coaching, managing point of view. So yeah, that's what I'll be talking about in a little bit. But of course, I always have my other topics that I'm trying to talk about on a regular basis, things that I want to check in on, things that help me remember what I'm trying to do and how I'm doing with them, kind of calling myself accountable. I talk about the concept of accountability through content. I think that is a concept for me that keeps me motivated. I almost feel a pressure to want to keep pushing myself, to do better, to hit those goals. And I think part of that was inspired by a conversation I had with a friend about the French culture and in fashion and how one presents themselves. I'm not saying this is right, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I still think it's a fascinating way of thinking that it's more culturally acceptable to judge people for how they present themselves in France. And that's just kind of, apparently part of the culture, per my friend. I don't know much about France, so this is secondhand information, but in my brain, the way I see that is, I can't remember the concept right now. I need to do my research and kind of go get my degree in psychology. But there is this concept where, yes, stress can be a very terrible thing. I think as human beings who don't, we live in a civilized society, there's a lot more stress, and that stress originally had the intent of keeping us alive, right? Give us adrenaline to run or fight, and give us cortisol for different situations, but a lot of that isn't actual threats. It's like, oh, I might get fired at my job. That's incredibly stressful. There's no physical danger to you, but there is a financial danger, and that's just as serious in our brains for most of Americans, at least that I know. It's stressful, it's almost as bad, and people get unhealthy in various different ways, including depression, just from stress. But I don't think stress is always a bad thing in moderation. And for what I'm talking about here, I think competition is also a good way to be stressful, or a good way to be stressed. Let me circle back to the point. I just enjoyed the concept of putting out this content not just for other people, but for myself and for my son. I don't talk about it too often on content, but I do have a son, and one of my new goals now is making sure that I'm a better person to be an example for him. It is a stress I'm willing to endure because I think it's important enough to work on that. And then there's nobody putting that stress on me other than me, and I have to make sure I manage, that responsibility, right? I don't want to call it stress because motivation, right? You can think about it as stress, but for me, it's just, I am going to do my damnedest to keep working on myself for his sake and for my wife's sake and my community's sake. I run the Kalamazoo FGC, and right now, I don't feel like I'm doing a great job of supporting it from afar. I'm very much a do-it-yourself kind of guy, and I think that when I do that, I keep too much information to myself, and I don't really create an ability to delegate. And I also don't like telling people what to do normally, but a lot of times I do have to do that now, and I'm realizing that sometimes direction is just what people need, and you give them the freedom to figure it out. But that direction is what's really important. So with that said, I would say that I think I talked about this already, but I started a gym membership, and I've been going somewhat consistently. This week has been really, really busy. I regret not packing a little bit more, like in a bigger suitcase rather than a backpack, just to bring my gym clothes. But I didn't exercise this week other than a lot of walking, which isn't bad. I hit way over my steps. I got the wristwatch, Samsung Galaxy type deal where, it's a pedometer, right? There's multiple things, but I looked at the pedometer and the heart rate, make sure I'm not having a panic attack or anything like that. I kid. Sometimes I like dark humor. Anyways, yeah, I feel really good about exercising. I'm usually doing it around 10 or 11 p.m. when I'm getting home from work, but I'm still using those hours productively. Before, I would justify it as, it's not worth it to exercise. I don't remember exactly how I made an excuse for it, but it's not working anymore. And I've experienced myself trying to talk my way out of it a couple times where, I was like, oh, I forgot my headphones, so I'm not going to work out. Like, I legit use that as an excuse. I've done that in the past, and I did it once last week or this week, I think this week, but I caught myself like the next thing. I was like, no. Like, what's your reasoning for not going to the gym? Are you in physical pain to where you feel like you might injure yourself? Is it, headphones? You know what? That's not a high priority. Yes, it is important, but you got to discipline yourself without them as well. And so that's what I did. I exercised and I just kind of got into a meditative state, didn't look at people. I like to people watch and just by nature, see how their mannerisms and everything. And one, in a gym, I feel like that gets you in trouble, so I'm not trying to do that. But two, whenever I look at other people, I get distracted. I recognize really easily, because I have ADD and I've struggled with it for so long to have an attention span longer than 30 seconds, that when I look at things, that is like a tangent almost from what I'm doing. That's why a lot of times when I learned working out, they said to stare at one specific spot. Like they said, all the form, make sure, 90 degrees or whatever your exercise you're doing, they give the form, but they also always mention like where you should be looking. One, I think for posture's sake, just to have like, exercising properly, engaging your chest, engaging your core, that sort of thing. But also I've recognized for myself, when I stare in one direction specifically, I don't get as distracted, or it's harder for me to get distracted, if that makes sense. Some of you might get that. Maybe that's an ADD thing, I don't know, but it definitely helps me. So when I'm exercising, whether it be the treadmill, which I think is the biggest challenge for me, because it's more than 30 seconds of exercising, it's continual. That's the hardest part for me. So I gotta make sure I'm just not looking at the TVs that are right in front of me, because I don't wanna look at I don't wanna watch news or soap opera. I don't wanna watch a lot of things that they're putting on there. I wanna focus on specific things. So I'll usually watch like fighting games, if anything, like a tournament or some content from a fighting game player. But other than that, I'm just listening to music. So didn't have my music, long story short, and I still exercised. Did, about 30 minutes. I try to do 30 minutes, 10 minutes of cardio, 30 minutes of weight, and then usually stretching to cool down. I guess 10 minutes of that. That's about 40 to 50 minutes. It's a little bit shorter than what I would like, but one, Planet Fitness has that kind of circuit thing where there's a bunch of different machines in a row in this small room where you just rotate every 30 seconds every set or something like that. There's a timer light thing there, if you know, from Planet Fitness, but essentially it allows me to just do hit a lot of different things, and I can skip different machines, especially with as late as I go. It's not really busy, maybe one person, usually nobody's in there. So going late, that's kind of another benefit. I don't like dealing with a packed gym. I realize this about myself. I will do it if I have to. If I have to go in the morning and it's busy, I will endure, but my preference is I would rather go later and just have it be emptier. So sometimes it's good to work around your preferences, but you can't use them as a crutch, right? So long story short, I'm exercising more, or somewhat consistently. I'm feeling some results. I'm not pushing myself too hard, but I'm making sure to challenge myself as safely as possible. Being a little bit older, it's a little bit more dangerous to have bad form, so I have to make sure I'm engaging my muscles, building those stabilizer muscles so my body can be a little bit more sturdy again. That's for my son, not just for my son. There's, I want to go hiking personally. I want to go do things. I want to still be physical, outside kind of guy. And when the need calls for it, if there's something really awesome that I want to participate in, I want to be able to do it. I still want to win some bike races, or at least participate in some. So I still have goals in the physical realm, like activities and sports and stuff that, for myself, for fun, but also maybe for competition as well. And maybe in my age range, I don't know. I don't really care right now. It's not about beating people. For me, it's just the mastery of it. So that's where I'm at with exercise. In terms of career, a lot of my attention with the WMU this last 2 weeks. We ran/participated in a tournament last week that I talked about. That episode should be out by now. I'm probably going to release this episode a week from recording, but I'll that's kind of how I have to do things. Record it and basically put it out a week later, or put out a shorter episode that week if I have to. And so the topic of tonight is going to go over, the last 2 days. So I'll talk about that in a second. In terms of what am I reading or listening to, I should say, I listen to audiobooks, but I also talk about, I talk about the books with friends as well. And right now I'm listening to a series called Viridian Gate Online. This one is a spinoff with the Firebrand. It's a story I've read like 4 or 5 of the books. The first 2 are free on Audible if you have an account, and then this book is free as well. So I think it's 5 books from the main storyline that I follow, but this one is a different character that the main character interacts with, but kind of getting her point of view and her origins. It seems like I'm only about 2 chapters in right now, and it seems like this is all not quite prequel, but things happening before the story, or at least simultaneously, I think, to the main story. Like maybe it starts from almost a near point to where the main character from the main series happens. As my guess, I'm pretty sure that's the case, but you don't know for certain. I have to let the story unfold a little bit further, and I think they'll circle back to that. But needless to say, I do like this series a lot. I don't know how I like this one so far. It's a different voice actor, or actress, I should say, from the main ones, and it's from a girl's perspective, so I think that makes sense. But the narrator from the other one, I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head. Right, yeah, it's narrated by Armin Taylor, because I always want to say Armin Hammer. Okay, yeah, so it's narrated by him. He does some really great accents, so I'm looking forward to this voice actress to see what she can do with the narration. But I don't know how I feel about it just yet, but I do recommend the series if you're into things like Sword Art Online without as much creepy, like weird romance stuff, but normal romance stuff instead. Just a couple of other things as well, like Dot Hack Sign or Ready Player One. I feel like there's elements of like a dystopian Ready Player One, which, again, the movie, I'll talk about the book. The book, it is very much a dystopian future where there's a 3D, VR world that they're in. But the situation in this one is different. It's like a good portion of society is now uploaded into a game, and they did it pretty much willingly to save themselves from dying, right? The planet's blowing up. This isn't too spoiler. I think this is like the explanation. The Earth, like literally, as far as we know, blows up, and the only way these people survive, it doesn't blow up. It gets like fried so that it's not livable. The sun like fries, like resources are slim and all this other stuff. Long story short, world blows up. People upload their consciousness to this game, and this follows one character specifically and his exploits and his interactions with characters and dealing with a government and like the government system and vying for power, and how this character kind of rises up from the ranks of just being a solo player essentially to kind of having a party and then leading a big guild is the closest thing I can say, like from an MMO. It almost feels like they're in the world of D&D, but now there's also people that are from a different, era, right? It's like they just plop themselves into a different world, kind of like, the campaign I'm doing is a Curriculum of Chaos. It's like in Magic, so you have D&D characters in the world of Magic. It's kind of like that, but also I forget to talk about this part, but the NPCs, you don't know if they're actually NPCs or not. And that part is incredibly fascinating to me for multiple reasons, right? Just the story as a whole. I am somewhat freaked out, but also very fascinated by AI. I'm excited for it, but I also feel like there's some bad things that can happen if we don't mature as a society, but just my opinion. So with that in mind, having these sentient NPCs, essentially, they have their own set of rules, and people who are from Earth have their own set of rules and how their characters work. And for NPCs, it's permanent. For humans, they respawn, kind of like an MMO. So maybe it isn't an MMO, but it just feels like a RPG, like a fantasy RPG that's multiplayer, not so much just like an MMO. But the NPCs can give quests, right? So they have different rules in how they operate. So it's like culturally normal for them to give quests to other people. And there is like a HUD that the players have that I don't think the NPCs see, or if they do, they're so used to it, they don't really acknowledge it too much. It's just fascinating. So they haven't really unveiled that part of it yet, and I'm hoping they do. But just knowing how those characters operate under those rules, I find the character interactions very fascinating, and the bonds that the main character builds with some of these NPCs, non-playable characters. It's something that very much interests me, and just the hardship and trials and tribulations these people go through together. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. So I can't recommend it enough. Get the book version. One of my best online friends, gaming friends, he he bought the book series. He passed me. He's finished the main series. He's reading like a bunch of different ones. And so he's like waiting for me to catch up. But the audiobooks aren't made yet, so I have to wait or buy the book. And I already have Audible. I'm not spending money on books right now. I still want the knowledge and the experience, and I travel a lot, so and exercise a lot. Fingers crossed. So I want to do the audiobooks. That's just how I work. But yeah, either way, the books are great. I guess it's a great read if you're into that sort of thing. But also, the voice actor for the main storyline is great. I can definitely recommend that one. This one I'll let you guys know as I, check back in on this topic. So if this does interest you, usually it's going to be before the main topic. I try to put timestamps in the description in case you guys didn't know that. Maybe I should mention it more often, but these last few episodes I've been trying to make sure that if you want to get to a specific topic, there's timestamps in the description for you, whether it be the video version or the podcast version. Again, accountability, right? Okay, so I am tired, so I want to just get right into the main point now that I'm done talking about that part. I did enjoy that. So WMU was invited to a 4-team tournament of a bunch of different games. I think it was 4 games. Rocket League, Overwatch, League of Legends, Smash. 4 games. So we took the varsity Rocket League team and Overwatch team and the club Smash players and League of Legends players. And we all went for a 2-day, Friday to Saturday tournament. It was really, really cool. We were in South Bend at the Bendix Arena. And what was really also awesome is that there was a car show going on at the same time. Like, I didn't go too deep into the car show. I just watched it from afar, but I did appreciate the cars a little bit. So, that's pretty cool. If you're watching the video version, there's probably gonna be video up right now. If you want to check that out, again, timestamps, you can go to the YouTube version. It was a good experience, right? Overall, it was really, really fun. What I want to do is talk about a couple of different topics. So I'm going to talk about the teams and how they did first, because I think that's the main chunk of this, right? But I also want to talk about the experience and a few other topics along the way. So let's start with Rocket League. That's a team that I'm most attached to, I guess, right? Because my position is different now. I don't coach the varsity Rocket League team at WMU anymore. I actually hired a coach who was the captain of the team. So a student coach, who's on a paid position. And he's coaching now instead of competing. He still competes in something like in this tournament though, but in our league he doesn't actually compete. He is still a student until the end of the semester, so this was the last experience to get a tournament for him. He's graduating. So needless to say, we did a round robin on day 1 and we beat 2 teams and lost to GVSU. They're the ones that we played before, so we already were really wanting to beat this team. And so we lost to them on game 1. And game 2, we got seeded to where we played them last. We played our first game. I think we destroyed them like 3-0. The match it was pretty unanimous, really, really unanimous. So our team was doing really great. And I know on Friday they stayed up watching VODs and studying the tapes and everything. And that made me proud to hear that. They were doing that on their own. I can rely on these people to be motivated to do the right thing. And I also feel very confident in my hiring of the coach. So that's really, really awesome as well. But unfortunately, in the best of 7 in grand finals, they wound up losing to GVSU. So we were waiting for next year. A lot of the players, other than the coach, they're going to be there next semester in the fall again. So I'm excited to keep working with them, to see them get the run back before they graduate. I think that'll be a really good experience for them to be able to have. Overall, in terms of experience, I'll talk about this more. These players had a good experience according to them. We asked them what can we do. Me and one other employee who's basically kind of overseeing it now. He's in charge of the project essentially. We just asked him, how was the experience? What do you think? Any advice from the student point of view? And we try to make sure we take their input in because they're the students, they're the people that get the experience. And as much as possible, we want to get that experience for them. Of course, there's the recruiting aspect and that's good for business, but they're still enjoying these experiences. They got to go, without paying for a tournament. They stayed overnight in the hotels, they shared rooms, of course, that's what gamers do. And then they got to compete on this pretty cool arena. It was in the gaming lab portion of it, but it was still a really cool experience and a good presentation for the most part. So unfortunately they did lose. One player took it really, really hard. They all took it pretty hard on themselves, but there was one player that I think, if you remember my topic on toxic accountability, I think I would say that he's borderline there. And he's a good kid, really good kid, really talented player in Rocket League, but just blames himself a little too hard. And I'm gonna keep working with him, gonna keep helping, but I'm just, you feel that. There's a, empathy. That's the word, right? Committing to these teams and trying to help them. Even though I'm not in a coaching position, I still support the coach and give them advice and things to work on, and I talk to the team and get their mindset. It's something that you want for them, and then when they don't get that, you feel responsible, and that's just how I felt. And I felt their sadness. I was sad with them, and I just tried to make sure that I didn't say they were, show them as disappointed, right? I don't think that's not my coaching style. Some coaches are like that, but I want to build people up, not tear them down. And some people, I do understand that they do need that, and I am very firm in certain points of views when I talk about it, but I make sure that my intention is try to minimize the downsides of someone's psyche while also making sure they're focusing on the right thing. That's just the way I see it. Everyone has their own style. That's mine. The next team was Overwatch, and they played so well. Like in day one, I think they went undefeated. On day two, they beat, I believe it was Bethal University in semifinals, and then went to grand finals.
Don't you drop one kill! No! Leave him on, one more! Let's go! Yes! Woo! Let's go!
And unfortunately, they wound up losing, I think, 1-2. They started strong in game one. Won game one. Then game two was really, really close. Then game three, there was like a couple of throws, I feel like, and some really good play from the DPS of GVSU. No, actually it was Bethal. It was Bethal. Bethal was the people who were hosting the tournament, the Bethal Pilots. They're partnered with Bendix Arena, which I think is really, really cool. So Bethal wound up taking it. The Overwatch team is a varsity team as well as Rocket League. And what's cool is that some of the players were from the club. We upgraded the Overwatch team from club to varsity. And so I know a lot of these players from before the pandemic. And, I've built bonds with these players. I've talked to them, had conversations, got to know them. The coach is actually one of the former players who had won the big tournament a while, like before the pandemic again. So he graduated and he came back to coach the Overwatch team. He's in a paid position as well. So one of the people who graduated from the school is now coaching as well. And there's another person about to graduate who's a student. He's coaching the Valorant team. They didn't go, unfortunately. It's pretty cool. I'm very connected to this team as well. I wanted them to win. I didn't have any time invested in the coaching portion of it at all, because Overwatch is not something that I can really coach. Just the mentality side of things, for sure. But strategy and things of that nature, not so much. So needless to say, I was bummed. They took it pretty hard as well. That was their coach's responsibility to kind of talk to them and help them out and handle the way he coaches. But I definitely still felt that. I really thought they had that game. It was so close. So we got second in both games. In Smash Bros, we had 4 players come, and the first 2 got 5th place each. I believe they shared 5th place. Fighting games are weird. The double elimination bracket numbering makes it kind of odd. Like there's no 4th place. It's like 1, 2, 3, 5th, 7th. It's something like that. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but just understand that it's kind of like 4th essentially, or 5th. But we also had 2 players in 1st and 2nd. And what's cool to me, a female person got 2nd place, and I think that's really cool, right? My point is that seeing females in games, or people who express themselves as females, whichever, I think it's cool. But yeah, so we went home with, for Smash Bros, they actually gave 2 trophies, or 3 trophies, I should say, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I believe Bethel University got 3rd, the student from Bethel. But yeah, we took home at least 2 tournaments, we at least took home a 1st place and a 2nd place trophy. And then the last game was League of Legends. League of Legends is a club team. And again, I know the coach, but I don't know the players as well. But I still, they were the last hope, right? All of our teams got to grand finals, at least. So every one of our teams so far and leading up to this got in grand finals or finals, the last match, right? And League of Legends was the last one, and I'm telling you guys, I was tired. These games go long. One game can be like 30 to 50 minutes, to an hour, let alone, best of 3. So it's like 5 o'clock by the time this is happening in game on day 2 on Saturday. They played well in the pools. I think they went 3-1, lost one match to the people they're playing now. And so they were getting the run back, and they won the first game pretty unanimously. Second game went by pretty fast, and they wound up losing that one. So one, I was tired and ready to go. I was like, I don't care who wins at this point. I just want you guys to like finish. Man, I was ready to drive. It was a 2-hour drive. So, and I gotta drop off the students before I come home. I'm ready to go. And, you know, I don't want to get too much into the band pick phase, but one thing that's important to understand about League of Legends is that you can essentially lose in the portion of the game that hasn't even started, where you pick your characters. There's a ban pick phase. Each team bans a certain number, and each team picks their characters for all the roles that need to be filled. There's a strategy to it, and this can determine how the game's gonna go if both teams play the way they're supposed to play. And I gotta say that I think that the League of Legends team, they won during that ban pick phase, and they played their game well, and they had some great team fights and was able to clutch out the win. So we have two teams, Smash and League of Legends, that took home trophies, and that's really important for the program, honestly, for students and reputation, but it's also cool for the students. I now understand a lot better the whole concept of team spirit and rivalries, right? When I was young, up until like 20 years old, I never really understood rivalries in school, like school rivalries. I didn't understand school spirit or anything of that nature. And I don't think I feel it the way that, you know, students did when I was in high school, but I'm invested in it because I'm putting time into it. So there's a personal investment, and, you know, I'm not the one playing, but I'm rooting for them. I want these kids, I know these kids, I want to see them have a good experience, and I want to see them get the win that they worked so hard for. So yeah, I am invested in these students, and I want to see them, you know, win and be happy and have a great time and have an experience that they're going to remember. And a lot of them did. But it was really cool to go home on a high note. You know, we won the last game of the day, and a lot of players played really well, but we actually finally like got a trophy, got some recognition in a game that we've been putting a lot of time into. Smash is something relatively new that, you know, a couple of students, I knew the students, I didn't know they went to the school, so that was crazy. But, you know, I didn't really know much about the Smash team. So in terms of that, it's like, yes, that's good for us. Like, that's good for business. But it's also really cool to know some Smash players and kind of help support that scene. So that's a whole other side thing that we're going to try to work on, is having some Smash tournaments at the arena and kind of supporting local Smash. But also seeing League of Legends win, especially as a club team with a coach who also graduated, but, you know, he's on the club side, so he's not paid, he's not a staff member, he's his own person, put a lot of time into this team, and we wound up winning. So that's pretty huge for him. He's a cool kid, you know, still young from my point of view, but clearly I would say he has some good skills in terms of coaching and good knowledge. So kudos to him, and kudos to the team. They played really well, and it was a great experience. All right, so I want to talk about the venue and my experience, my point of view from like production and stuff like that. So again, we didn't get to sit into the big arena. I'll put some pictures in the video version, but it was kind of like a gaming lab. They had good PCs, they had a cool setup. They still had a stage on this room as well, with like plexiglass setups so that, you know, like sneeze guards essentially. And we got to still watch the match. It wasn't like a huge big screen, but we got to watch like big screen TVs rather than like a big projector. And the venue, like it looked really nice. Like I had to just put pictures and video up for you guys because it's hard to really describe it from my point of view. Like it's hard to talk about like structure and like how it looked. But I'll put a link in the YouTube version so that if you want to check it out, you can kind of skim through that, and again, timestamps for this. But anyways, I thought it looked really cool. It was way more comfortable. It was in a good location because it was in like this, what do you call these things? Not like a plaza, not almost like a mall, right? There's a couple other stores within the same building, but there was an arena. So it's convention center. I think convention center is the right term. I think that's what it would be called. But in terms of production, I think they still have some like learning to do. I don't think they have any paid production just yet, so that's part of the challenge, is mainly students running it, and I think they're having internet problems as well. So they have some challenges. It's so interesting because every college in esports has their own challenge. You have to kind of hyper focus in a certain area and then build out from there, otherwise you spread yourself too thin. So it's cool seeing a lot of different colleges make do with what they have and making it work and focusing around that and still developing teams, competitively viable team. You know, so I always offer my advice. I was like, hey, if you have any questions, I'll let you know. Here's something that you can do to help you out. It feels cool to have that knowledge and see, like, it's maybe an ego boost to realize that a lot of other colleges still have a long way to go in terms of production. Like we're light years ahead of other schools at Western in terms of production, and that's really awesome. I feel really proud about that, and I've invested so much time into it that it's cool that I I have that knowledge and it's just like up there, and I can help other people, which streaming is a very important thing in this era of technology and culture. So to have the skills to run a stream, to teach people how to get equipment and software and setup, that's a really cool skill that I have, that I don't know when I developed that, but it just sort of happened from just hobby, from this podcast, from YouTube, and from running tournaments. I've learned multiple different avenues, but also working at Western and their software and learning like professional software and studying other tournaments and just watching and asking questions and learning. I've developed this knowledge and I've developed this skill to be able to do things pretty quickly in the programs, for multiple programs. OBS, Streamlabs OBS, vMix, the Elgato software is pretty cool too, getting creative with the Elgato Stream Deck. That's really cool. But tangent aside, what was also awesome was there was a car show going on, so I got to see some cars that I really liked, like the Datsun 240, Nissan 240, I think Fairlady. It was a Dodge Charger, there was a monster truck in there, there was a Viper, a GTR. So that was really cool. I kind of wish I had spent a little bit of time checking that out, but it cost like $5 and I'm pretty frugal, so I just didn't. But yeah, there was a car show going on, and then I got to see some really cool stuff. And the location of South Bend, I've never been there before. It was pretty cool. It was snowing on day 2 and raining on day 1, so the weather was trash. But the location was pretty cool. Our hotel was right across the street. Like it was like a 30-second walk depending on traffic. Right, like you can see the building right there. It was not a far trek. It wasn't connected to the building like I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't that bad at all. So we were able to go back and forth, get food at the hotel and that sort of thing. Worked out really well. And then on our way out, the person from Bendix Arena actually showed us the arena portion of it. It looked really cool. It looked really, really cool. So I think there's a lot of potential there. We got invited to next year. We had a great experience. It seemed like they liked us. We liked them. So yeah, we want to go back, beat them in Rocket League, beat them in Overwatch. I think that motivation is good. I think that motivation is really, really good. We have something to look forward to. These leagues are really cool, and the Rocket League team is still in their league. They're going to get finals for sure, but having these rivalries is pretty interesting. It's pretty fun. I'm more competitive in my older age now than I was when I was younger. I'm way more confident in what I believe in myself and in believing in others. And I don't mind a competition because I think competition breeds excellence. The will to show your mastery and or defeat an opponent, and the focus and practice and discipline it takes to get there, I think that experience makes you a better person if you let it. Some people can get very toxic from trying to be competitive. There's like competitively toxic people, or they just enjoy being jerks to other people. There's that aspect of it. But with discipline and focus and intention and goals and planning, competition can be something that builds a lot of character in you, and you recognize things about yourself you didn't even know, and you can develop skills to a high degree that might help you understand concepts in the future for learning other things that are totally unrelated, but you still have this mindset and experience that you can relate things to. So I want to embrace that for these students, and I try to help them guide towards that direction so that they do make those choices on their own. It's a little hard to plant those seeds and make them think they had that idea on their own, and I don't really care to take the credit when it does happen, and I see it happen anyway. As long as they get the information and they better themselves, that's all I want. I'll start getting paychecks more as I get more clients and people want to pay me. Hopefully I continue to work with Western and I continue to make more money doing it. That is the goal. That is a dream. We'll find out in the summertime, hopefully, what that, I'll talk about it. I'll never talk about specifics on money. I don't really like to talk about how much I make, so don't expect that anytime soon, but I will bring up the topic when that time comes, and I'll let you know what I can. The last thing that I'll talk about is Cloud9. In the past, I talked about a partnership with Cloud9, and I still don't have all the details, so I can't really say too much again, but I can say that the contract is working on being signed, and it seems like both parties are wanting to do this, so all the paperwork has to clear, but there will be some interaction with Cloud9 and Western, and I'll be a part of that project. And so I'm excited to see what happens, right? I don't know too much of the details just yet, and when I find out, I'll let you know what I can. But that's really exciting to add to my repertoire, my resume, and I'm excited for this summer. I'm really curious to see how this goes. Kind of a coincidence, one of the representatives from Cloud9 was at the tournament that I went to, so we got to talk about it a little bit, and I got that point of view as well. So again, I'm being tight-lipped more than I need to be, but I'm not superstitious, but I don't want to jinx the situation, if that makes sense. And I don't want to say too much if things roll back, because then I'll have to mention all that too, because otherwise I just ignore that. I couldn't just ignore that. I talked about it, and so I gotta update you now. End of story. I had a great experience. I think a lot of the students had a great experience. There was some heartbreak and a lot of celebration. And I would say that all of us are excited to go back next year and prove ourselves and have fun and build a community of competitive gamers with other schools. I'm very grateful for this experience. I've missed traveling for tournaments, and even though I'm not the one competing, it's still great, and I'm still a gamer, so I still will play some games when I am able to. And, it's just a fun experience, and I think a lot of the students really appreciated it. Some of them are seniors, so they're graduating this year, so it's the last chance they'll get to do this. For a lot of them, they may never ever do this again. They go off to their majors that have nothing to do with esports, and they go on with their life. Some of them might have futures in esports and may continue to pursue that career, and they have some support from us and their team and their community. Some of those graduates are still here coaching teams. They are invested. We're building a community. We're building something more than just playing video games. And the more people that understand that, the better. Competitive gaming may not make sense to a lot of people, but I've been around it enough to know that it can breed excellence too. It helps motivate me to be a better person. I love improving at various games. I can't commit too much time to a lot of them, but I try to make sure I get something out of it when I play. I try to make sure I practice my composure so that I don't ever really get too nervous, or I don't recognize when I'm nervous, and I have techniques to calm myself down and bring myself back to a focused state. I work on that, and it's able to help me help other people do that as well. So I have to say, if you're in the Kalamazoo area, make sure you check this out. If you're a student, check this out. We are here. I want to try to do my part to get this program more attention, more eyes. They seem cool with me talking about it, and I'm going to talk about it in a respectful nature. I'm never really going to badmouth the organization. I'm sorry, I'm just not that kind of guy. If there's something that I might not agree with, I'll try to express it from my point of view as much as possible. And I'm not going to disrespect someone who is helping me eat, right? Helping my family eat. I'm not going to shill either. I'm going to be as honest as I can be professionally, but I really believe in the product. I really believe in what they're building there. I believe in what I'm building there. I've contributed a lot of time and attention to this. And while I'm not making the same mistake again, where I stop making content and stop working on my business, I'm going to still work on that. But this is kind of like a life project. There's a lot of things that I'm personally fascinated by and want to do, and can do that through them. So I'm going to try to do that as much as possible. And I have more ideas that I can't get to yet, or don't want to get to yet, that I really want to do. So I got to do more things, and hopefully this still works out. Hopefully I can invest more time into this in the future with pay raises and such. But for now, I'm just glad to do what I do. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. The last thing I'll mention is my affiliate with Audible. If you go to taviannapier.com/audible, you can get yourself a free month of Audible. You get to choose two options. I do the more expensive one, which is like $14.95 a month, I believe. And that gets you access to the catalog of free books, kind of like Netflix in a way. There's books that are sponsored by Audible that are free if you have the service, right? But you also get one free book a month, one free book token that you can put towards whatever book it may be. So I tend to look at the more expensive ones that I'm interested in. I got a lot of personal development books, like The Art of Learning, like Think and Grow Rich, like Mastery by Robert Greene, but I also have stuff like Viridian Gate Online and the Harry Potter series. So I got a little bit of both, and I listen to those through Audible. But you can also check out the, I think it's $7.95 version as well. That one just gets you access to the catalog that I talked about before, but Viridian Gate Online is on there, at least the first two books and the Firebrand one. So you can check out those books on my recommendation. Highly recommend them. You can do it for free. No commitment. If you keep it after a month, then I will make a profit. Otherwise, you tried something out and it didn't work for you, and I'm fine with that. But if you do, I think that you'll have a good experience with Audible, so I recommend it. Thank you guys so much for your support. I feel like I'm doing really well with the recording and editing process. I'm new. I have a new editing process that I'm working on, and is more tedious, but I feel more productive when I do it, so I've been trying to adhere to that. And as such, it's easier for me to recognize when that episode is not going to be done in time, and I can record a shorter content for you guys so that I stay accountable and I still put out content. You guys have a great one. I will see you all in the next one.